Okay, so this is for the first power, okay? And in the italics, Rinpoche is put, at the beginning of each day, after you open your eyes, until enlightenment is achieved and until death, especially today, so that all the activities of your body, speech, and mind, hearing, thinking, meditating, as well as walking, sitting, sleeping, doing your job, and so on, do not become causes of suffering and become causes of happiness, and especially that they become the causes to achieve Buddhahood. Here is a method for transforming the mind into holy Dharma and especially into bodhicitta. So what we have in the beginning, a direct meditation on the graduated path. This is arranging the teachings into the three scopes of the Lam Rim. So this is just like what we did in the last session with the foundation of all good qualities. This is also a Lam Rim prayer. So you could pick if you like this one better, if you like the other one better, you choose. But basically starting the mind with the whole Lam Rim just to get you oriented. What am I doing? Where am I going? Okay. This is a Lam Rim prayer. Yep, there are many Lam Rim prayers, and this is one of them that's really nice. Okay, so so as I read it, connect with whatever pieces you've already understood, and the pieces you haven't understood, hold them in the mind with some curiosity, like, I'm going to investigate this further. I'm becoming used to these words so that I can look into them more deeply. So where it resonates, let it connect. Where it doesn't resonate, just keep it as an open question, all right? So this is like a reflection meditation, which is slightly less intense than an analytical meditation. It's using a prayer to reflect, yeah? It's a structure, yeah? So with an analytical meditation, there is more work for you to do with the material, asking lots of questions, going very deeply. With this reflection, you're more reviving what you already know, okay? So just kind of get yourself into a meditative atmosphere. And if you like to read along, you can. Otherwise, just thinking about the meaning as I read it. And then I'll explain it a little after. Essence encompassing all the Buddhas, originator of all the holy Dharma of scripture and realization, principle of all the Aryas intending virtue, in the glorious holy Gurus I take refuge. Please, Gurus, bless my mind to become Dharma, Dharma to become the path, and the path to be without obstacles. Until I achieve Buddhahood, please bless me to be like youthful Lozang and Bodhisattva always crying, in correctly following the virtuous friend with pure thought and action, seeing whatever is done as pure, and accomplishing whatever is said and advised. And just sitting with that. And so connecting your mind with the concept of perfect human rebirth and with Guru devotion. Please bless me to see that this greatly meaningful body with freedoms and richnesses is difficult to find and easily perishes, that action and result are so profound, and that the sufferings of evil-gone transmigratory beings are so difficult to bear. Therefore, please bless me to take refuge from the depths of my heart in the three rare sublime ones, abandon negative karma, and accomplish virtue according to Dharma. So in particular, thinking about those teachings on refuge that we just experienced. The fear of what the untamed mind will create for itself and others. The conviction that the three jewels offer the tools in order to release ourselves and others from suffering. In dependence upon that, Even if I achieve the mere higher rebirth of a deva or human, I will still have to experience suffering endlessly in samsara because of not having abandoned and being under the control of the disturbing thought obscurations. Therefore, please bless me to reflect well upon the way of circling in samsara and to continuously follow, day and night, the path of the 3 types of precious trainings, the principal method for becoming free from samsara. And so connecting with the determination to be free from negative habitual tendencies, renunciation of suffering and its causes, the wish for nirvana, the state beyond sorrow. Just reconnecting with your level of understanding with those. In dependence upon that, even if I achieve mere liberation, since there is no sentient being of the 6 types who has not been my father and mother, please bless me to think I must fulfill their purpose and turn away from the lower happiness of nirvana. Then please bless me to generate precious bodhicitta by equalizing and exchanging myself with others, and follow the conduct of the conqueror's sons, the 6 paramitas, and so forth. Connecting with bodhicitta. Having trained my mind in the common path in that way, I will not be upset even if I have to experience the sufferings of samsara for a long time. However, please bless me to look at sentient beings with extraordinary, unbearable compassion and enter the quick path of the Vajrayana teachings. Then please bless me to protect my vows and samayas more than my life, and to quickly accomplish the unified Vajradhara state in one brief lifetime of this degenerate time. And so connecting with bodhicitta again, in particular thinking, when and if I enter the tantric path, may it always be together with this wish to become enlightened, with renunciation from suffering. May I not give rise to heresy for even a second in regard to the actions of the glorious Guru. May I see whatever actions are done as pure. With this devotion, may I receive the Guru's blessings in my heart. Magnificent and precious root Guru, please abide on the lotus seat at my heart. Guide me with your great kindness and grant me the realizations of your holy body, speech, and mind. And so again, remembering that collaboration between the external guru and the internal guru, that person that represents the Buddha for you, helps you connect to the Buddha, and speaks to your own wisdom, helping it develop. Determined to obtain the greatest possible benefit from all sentient beings, who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, I shall hold them most dear at all times. May I become like a wish-granting jewel, fulfilling all the wishes, and like a wish-granting tree, fulfilling all the hopes of transmigratory beings. For the sake of accomplishing the 2 purposes of all sentient beings, without any sense of loss or concern, I give away my body and likewise my enjoyments, such as food and clothing, and even all my virtues accumulated over the 3 times. By abandoning attachment and giving everything away, I will pass beyond sorrow, and my mind will achieve the non-abiding, sorrowless state, the state of omniscience. Since I will have to give up everything all at once when I die, it's best for me to give it away to sentient beings, because Buddhahood is attained in that way. As I have already given this body an impure aggregate to all beings to use for their pleasure, even if they always kill me, criticize me, beat me, and so forth, I will let them do whatever they like. From now on, whether they play games with my body or make it an object of laughter by ridiculing and making fun of it to hurt me, since I have already given this body of mine to sentient beings, why would I resist by protecting it and so forth? I will also use it to do any virtuous action that doesn't harm and benefits others. Whenever any sentient being encounters me, may it never be meaningless for them and always be meaningful. Whenever someone has an angry or a devotional thought arise just by looking at me, may that attitude alone become the cause that always accomplishes all the temporary and ultimate purposes of that being. Whenever others criticize me with their speech, harm me with their bodies, or likewise insult me behind my back, may all of them have the fortune to achieve great enlightenment. May I be a savior for those who lack a savior, a guide for all those beings who enter a road, a boat, a ship, and a bridge for those who want to cross the water. May I be an island for those who seek the safe shore of an island, a light for those who want a light, bedding for those who wish for bedding, and for all beings who desire a servant, may I become a servant of them all. May I be a wish-granting jewel and a wish-fulfilling vase, giving rise to whatever is desired, such as food and clothing. Powerful mantra accomplishing the actions of pacification, increase, and so forth. Great medicine curing every disease. A wish-fulfilling tree satisfying every need, and a wish-granting cow for all beings. Like the four great elements, the earth and so forth, and like the sky, may I always be a means of living in every way for the innumerable sentient beings. Likewise, may I be a means of living at all times and in all ways for the realms of sentient beings equaling the extent of space, until they all attain the sorrowless state. As long as space remains, as long as transmigratory beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the suffering of transmigratory beings. Okay, so the next section is blessing the speech, and this involves a lot of mantras and some connection with a tantric path at the beginning. So this you might want to leave to one side until you have a tantric empowerment of some kind. But if you're up for it, you can, rock on and just keep going with blessing the speech. But the main part I want us to connect with is this first part. And I realize that a lot of it is very confronting, that some of it may not make sense yet, and that part of the power of doing something like this every day is that the mere repetition of the words makes them more clear, right? Just saying them again and again, you go, oh, I know what teaching that's referring to. Oh, I get what logic that's referencing. And then slowly over time, as your education increases, more and more of it will make sense. But even the parts that don't make sense, you're building your familiarity with them. So it's, as we call, planting seeds, right? Leaving good imprints on your mind stream. So a lot of the bits that would be confusing have a footnote, right? So you see lots of little wee numbers throughout, right? So at the back, there's some good footnotes about what is this, or where did it come from, or some context. So I'm not going to go into every single little bit of it. I want you to research it for yourself, okay? We could do a whole class just on the meaning of every single verse of this whole practice, right? But basically know that it's talking about the Lamrim, the graduated path. All right, so the first sections were connecting with the preliminary stages of the path, which is reminding you that you have a precious human rebirth, right? Do you remember this teaching we did in the very first module? So why is it important to remember that you have a precious human rebirth? Or if you don't believe in past and future lives, why is it important to think of how lucky it is that you're a human with resources? What's the point? Exactly, so you can use it. So you can use it. Not to waste time, exactly that. Not to waste time. This is also the antidote to depression, right? Because depression is very much associated with a lack of contentment, right? Either a lack of contentment with oneself and who you think of yourself as, or a lack of contentment about your life circumstances. I know that depression can get much more complicated than that, but if we're honest, a lot of our everyday, relatively sane person depression is a lack of contentment, okay? So a direct way to counteract that can seem overly simplistic. It can seem, oh, remember the good things you have going for you, then you'll be happy. And part of you is annoyed because you think, if it was as simple as that, I would be happy already, right? But this teaching on precious human rebirth is far deeper than the surface words present. That if you actually sit with the fact that you have enough health, you have enough health, you have enough intelligence, you have enough resources to do whatever you want to do on the spiritual path, that is an epic thing to sit with. Right? In terms of the world, you might have your aches and your pains and your random diseases and your various disturbances. In terms of the world, you might not be seen as an attractive person. Who cares? In terms of the spiritual path, you got yourself into this room by yourself, right? Or with a friend who drove you, which means you have enough health to practice the spiritual path, right? You got yourself here. That's amazing, right? If you didn't have physical independence, the spiritual path is not lost to you. It just would be harder, though, wouldn't it? Right? So if you just sit with the fact that actually, whatever your worldly version of health is, practically speaking, it is enough. It can actually make you a bit happy, right? It's enough. What else do you want? You were able to get yourself from point A to point B. It's enough, right? Of course, work on it, right? Of course, eat healthy, exercise, yes, common sense. But sitting with the truth of you are healthy enough can settle you from a lot of the dissatisfaction you have about your physical experience, okay? Thinking about the fact that you have enough intelligence. You all can read, you all can write, you can all have a conversation. That is not a universal experience, right? Lots of people can't read and write. Lots of people don't have the ability to process information in this way because of whatever physiological issues, right, or trauma. It's a big deal that you can process information as well as you do. So you might think, oh, I don't get all of this, or this is too hard. That's all worldly nonsense, right? You have enough intelligence to make incremental, slowly change, right? To know more today than you knew at the beginning of today. A couple more things. Right? If you wanted to, right? If you wanted to learn a couple more things today, you could. Yes? So you have enough, right? And that's rare and special and impermanent, right? Just like your health, right? Rare and special and impermanent. We're not getting any younger, yes? Okay. So also you have enough resources, right? And you can feel all sorts of angst and worry about your debt, angst and worry about your small income, angst and worry about your house maintenance, but again, you wound up in a room here, so you had enough resources to get here to have this conversation. Yeah? There's enough community resources for classes to happen, right? So this, we forget that this is a little bit rare. Yeah? People in this country complain a lot about there not being enough, right? Enough of this, enough of that, or there's not a place for us to blah, 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 or there's not, we don't have our own Tibetan Lama who lives here in residence. We don't have His Holiness and Lama Zopa Rinpoche coming all the time. And exactly, Shuki says, yet, right? Yet, right? We have to create the cause. We have to create the cause by the work we're doing now. And yet what we have now is enough to get some work done, okay? So it sounds simple, right? It sounds like, oh, you're just looking on the bright side, you're just being an optimistic person. I know reality, right? I know the suffering of existence, right? And you'll get all very deep and angsty about it. But actually making your mind sit with what is going well makes you use it. Yeah. So this very first section, just thinking about the words of this, whichever ones you can connect with, we're looking at the fact that this work has been done by others, this youthful Norse song, the Bodhisattva Always Crying. You can look up their stories online. The point is that it's been done before, and you can do it too, right? It's been done before, and you can do it too. Seeing that this greatly meaningful body with freedoms and richnesses, right? Freedoms and richnesses meaning enough health, enough intelligence, enough resources, right? Is difficult to find and easily perishes. This is an important piece, yes? So you're using this prayer structure to revive your knowledge. Okay, so this whole idea of using a prayer as a way of orienting your motivation in the morning maybe is going to work for some people, maybe isn't going to work for others. But in Tibetan Buddhism, it's very much used and encouraged, and it can kind of help get you on a roll for the rest of your practice, right? Especially in the morning when you're sort of like vague, right? And a little bit dull in the morning and just like trying to focus, what is the point of this? You know, you're still, what? You know, when you get to your cushion, you're still a little bit like uncertain, and it doesn't have a ton of energy because you kind of forgot why you do it in the first place. Actually reciting something wakes up that wise bodhicitta part of yourself, right? It wakes it up. So it's a helpful structure to recite prayers like this and to do it in terms of a reflecting meditation. And built right into this one, you know, there's these little section breaks, which means stop there and think about it, right? Yeah, stop there and think about it. So this concept of using a prayer structure as a way of getting your motivation going, how does this sit for you? Are some of you feeling like, oh my God, this is religious, I'm freaking out? Are some of you thinking, yay, now I have a structure? What's going on? Talk.
I'm on the yay side.
You're on the yay side, woo! Right? Anybody on the, oh my God? Anyone there? Yeah.
I experienced two problems. First is, of course, my personal practice of just wanting to do the, check, which of course I know is
Yeah.
I have no questions about it, just
Just putting it out there, yeah.
But the real problem sometimes can be, I'm lucky, I didn't experience much, but I think I'm experiencing now, is that sometimes the depression or the doubts are about to pass.
Itself.
It's like
Yeah.
the same questions that I asked myself before Buddhism, like, what is my life about?
Yeah.
When you think about becoming enlightened,
Yeah.
then you're probably not going to be able to do that. This life,
Yeah.
then sometimes like I'm really experiencing right now, like it feels like I'm wasting my time sometimes, like I'm not really.
Yeah.
Where
is it going?
Like I'm wasting my hours in the morning meditating or reading some prayers or doing some mantras, and then what? Like okay, so.
Yeah, it's important.
Sorry,
No. It's a thing. It happens,
I
right?
think it's just this is my second time it happens to me, but nobody talks about it. So.
Yeah, existential crisis. Shall we talk about an existential crisis? Yeah, might as well, right? It comes up, right? Let's do it. You are not alone is the first, right? You are not alone. Right. Yes. And yes, you're not alone, and it happens to anyone who's trying, right? The ones who don't have it happen are the ones that, right, who are never touching the depth and really like floating on the surface and becoming glassy-eyed fanatics. Right, this is who it doesn't happen to, is people that don't go deeply. So first of all, it's a good sign, because you're digging. It's horrible feeling. It's a horrible feeling, this doubt, this existential crisis of, is this even worth the time I'm putting into it? Is this actually even going anywhere? How can I possibly get enlightened in this life? Maybe it'll happen in future lives, but also, what am I doing? You know, this happens, right? And it's normal that it happens. The first thing I would say is we waste time all the time. So is this really like we also, spend lots of hours doing nonsense, like, I don't know, watching YouTube or something, right? So first look at, all right, did I just waste an hour doing my practice? Time wasted, I'm wasting my life. In the great scheme of time-wasting activities, is that really your worst one? Right? Like you're not causing any trouble. You're not using any resources, right? You're trying to orient your mind in a positive way. Is it fair to really call that time wasting when you certainly waste time in any number of other activities? Like first just sort of sit there, right? Just on that level, right? There are a million other things that you do to waste time and they don't cause an existential crisis, right? Right, YouTube binge, right? You think, oh, I shouldn't have a YouTube binge, but nevertheless, right? Happens.
I think
Yeah.
when you put the practice as the main dish of your day, that's a major problem. And that's what I'm experiencing.
Yeah, okay.
Myself,
Yeah.
This is my work.
Yeah, it's your work.
Then
Yeah, and then it gets confronting, right? Because something's got to give, something's got to change. When you really practice sincerely, you do smack up right against your old habits, and there is a friction there, and there's also a, will this really work, right? And there's a million ways to kind of get yourself through these dark patches, but you don't ever want to just jump over them and pretend they're not there. They are the useful thing, because when you work through these dark patches, what is on the other side of that is a level of depth in your practice that you didn't have before, right? So personally, what's gotten me through dark patches, and I seem like a happy creature, right? But I've had my darkness, yes, like everyone. What gets me through the dark patches is to remember the things that are not emotional, to remember the logic, right? Because emotions will find all sorts of things to justify themselves. They're very good at it. Don't turn towards them and try to sort them out in the mess of the emotions, because they're more clever than you, right? If you go into your emotional experience, it will just become stronger and stronger. If you say, okay, I'm having an emotional experience, I'm not disassociating from my emotional experience, but the words of that emotional experience are not the words of logic. If I turn my attention to the logic that I've already touched in this path, they shut up. Yeah, they do. And the first piece of logic that you want to look at is, do you think the mind is trainable? Don't say trainable all the way to enlightenment, just trainable in general, right? In a basic way, right? Can you learn new things? This is a first question. Can you learn new things? If you wanted to learn Italian, you could, right? You would need some books, and you would need a teacher, and you would need to repeat a lot of things. But if you wanted to learn Italian now as an adult, you could, right? We could. It would take time and effort, but we could do it, yes? And so this is the first thing we're looking at, is everything in the Dharma is based on the idea that the mind is trainable, yeah? We have trained it unintentionally into all sorts of negative states of mind and negative habits, which is why they're so strong. Not because we're bad, right? The habits are just very strong. So you're looking at, can I train the mind in a different direction with effort? And what is this enlightenment we're talking about? Maybe call it something less abstract. Call it fulfilling my potential, right? What is my potential as a human being? What is my potential? What is moving towards developing that? So you can sort of look at, what are the good qualities we already have? We already have some compassion. We already have some loving kindness. We already have some patience. We already have some concentration. These are reflections of what's to come, right? This is a basis to work from. So what is the spiritual path that I want? I want to be more compassionate. I want to be more loving, right? I want to be more wise. And I already have those qualities, right? You already have those qualities. They just can be increased. They're skills, they're tools. Part of our problem is that we feel like a lot of the things we seek should just kind of be naturally built in without effort. And if they don't come naturally, then it's not for us, right? And if they don't come naturally, it just means they're new. That's all it means, is they're new. Yeah? So we have to look at the way we approach new material, right? Our approach to the spiritual path is as important as the path, right? The way you look at learning new material is as important as the material, right? There's the material that you're trying to figure out and work towards, but if you're coming at it with a mind like, say you had all sorts of ego issues while you were at university, right? And competitiveness while you were at university, and self-loathing while you were at university, right? Of, oh, I'm not learning as quickly as the other people, or I'm learning super quick, I'm amazing, or whatever your trip was with learning new things. If you're bringing that to the Dharma path, of course the Dharma path is going to get complicated, right? So don't destroy this perfect thing with your old habits, right? That your approach, if your approach is, I'm modeling the way I want to be with others, with how I approach my spiritual path, right? So how do I want to be with others? I want to be patient with them, right? I'm not always patient. I want to be patient with them. I want to be compassionate with them. So I need to be patient and compassionate with myself as I approach this new material that has such vastness and such depth and such few pieces where I touch immediately. Yeah? I want to look at my approach to this material because this is really training me in how I approach others. Yeah? The way you speak to yourself becomes the way you speak to others. If you have this punishing attitude of, why don't I get it yet? Why aren't I there yet? What is wrong with me? We bring that judgmentalness to our relationships with other people, right? And so you have to adopt this attitude of whether the path goes smoothly and quickly or whether it takes forever and full of obstacles, the path is a process. How I approach the process is my spiritual path, my approach, right? What's actually happening, okay, we'll see. But the approach is the thing that we're trying to work on. Like, I have no idea when I'm going to get enlightened, right? It could be, I don't know, in 20 years, it could be in 20 lifetimes, it could be in 20 eons. But the fact that I've found a process that is moving me towards my potential makes me happy, right? It's moving me towards my potential, right? Whenever there's effort, right? So I guess rely on your logic when your emotions start to cloud things, right? But also listen a little bit. What are they saying? Where is the block? Because it might be that there's like one piece in the path that you have some real genuine doubts about. And what does that mean? Study, right? So it might be that you're like, yep, compassion, yep, loving kindness, bodhicitta? Then it just means, okay, that's obviously the area I need to do more study because it's not sitting right, yeah? The fact that it's not sitting right is not a problem, right? It's just not sitting right, so let's pull it apart and look at it more deeply. So the spiritual path is so personal. It's so individual, right? We have these kind of frameworks to work within, but your approach to them is so individual. And if you're just sort of reciting them because they're the thing to do, you will start to get this dryness in your practice, right? This lack of energy, this lack of momentum. If you're just sort of reading through that because that's what you're supposed to do, yeah? What we want to do is read through the things that we've decided to read through, but each day we're bringing a new freshness to it, a new mind to it. So when you do a practice like this one every single day, different verses pop out at you, right? You're saying the same ones every day, but the one that like is really nailing it, right, and that you're really bringing into the day varies. And that's kind of the power of a repetitive practice as opposed to kind of a haphazard random practice, is that what comes into the day is more and more enriching and stabilizing. So I don't know, what other people advice other people have when you have a bit of an existential? Yes? There's lots of old school practitioners about. Yeah? Go for it, yeah.
I think that the thing that helped me the most with depression, I had a lot of episodes. And I don't think people talk about it enough, is self-compassion. I mean, we talk about a lot about compassion to other people, but first of all, you have to have a lot of compassion to yourself. A lot of compassion to yourself. I think it's the greatest antidote to depression. You just have to understand yourself and to say to yourself things like your best friend or your mother or your father or something. And sometimes we need like people that would do it to us, but sometimes there aren't, and we have to do it ourselves.
Well, and self-compassion, I think you're spot on. I think that's perfect. But what is self-compassion, right? We feel like self-compassion is going for a spa day, right? Like getting a massage, right? Like eating our favorite foods. Like that's the way we decide is self-compassion. But what is compassion, right? It's the wish to be free from suffering, right? Others, ourself, right? So what is really compassionate, the most compassionate thing you can do for yourself is to stop creating the causes for suffering. That's the nicest thing you can do to yourself, right? You can do Tonglen, that is very good. Loving kindness, exactly. Yeah, you can. Well, Tonglen should start with yourself, right? We skip straight to others, but first you do Tonglen for yourself, right? Giving and taking practice where you think, all right, what's wrong? What's wrong, old buddy? All right, here's physically, here's mentally, here's relationships, here's financially, here's all the trouble. Let's list it. But you're sort of listing it with objectivity, right? Here's all my trouble. And then you say, I want it, right? All this trouble, I want it back, right? Because all of this is fuel for my path. All of this doubt, all of this confusion, all of this anxiety, all of this depression is fuel for my practice. This is my practice. So you're sort of looking at it with some objectivity and deciding, I want it back, right? And it empowers you to now use your life. It empowers you to use your life. When there's resistance to the issues of your life, that compounds the suffering, right? Right?
But is it like inviting it?
See, that's superstitious. That's superstitious. Yeah. I'm not done yet, right? Right. So this is the thing, right? Is that your approach to the trouble in your life is really important because you realize so much of your trouble is worse because of your resistance to it, right? It's the resistance that makes it pressure, right? It was just trouble before. Why are you making it worse, right? By this pushback. Right. And this is, again, don't lose your common sense. Of course, if you have a health issue, go to the doctor. If you have a financial issue, go to a financial planner. Yes, we're not going crazy, right? Common sense holds. It's about the mental attitude, right? So you say to your troubles, I want you back. All of this doubt and confusion, I want you back. Yeah, all this depression, I want you. This is my fuel, right? You breathe it in. But what do you give it to when you're doing Tonglen? What do you give all the bad stuff to? You give it to the self-cherishing attitude, which is the very thing that made it difficult to cope in the first place, right? And you think that all of this trouble you give to your self-cherishing thought, and it melts it, it dissolves it, it blasts it apart, right? Blasting it. And, and so now it's useful. Now you think of all of your good stuff. Right? You think of your good friendships, your good relationships, all of the good stuff in your life, all of the happy qualities, all of the good stuff. And you think it takes the form of golden light that you breathe out, right? Voluntarily letting it go. No! Yes, right? Let it go, right? All your good stuff. You let it go, sending it out, but now you can imagine it reabsorbs back into you, but this time cleansed of its attachment. Yes? So you're releasing all the good stuff, comes back to you anyway, right? Just like, your mom said in some teenage romance, right? If you really love them, let them go. If they come back, it's real, right? Remember your mom saying this? I don't know. But it's the same with this happinesses, right? If you let them go, when they come back to you, now they're released from the attachment to them. You can actually enjoy them more. So you're breathing in, breathing out for yourself. Then you do it for the people in your life. So it can sound superficial, or it can sound wrong because of the way we've been educated. But if you think about the suffering of other people, now you're connected to them, right? And part of our suffering is feeling so isolated and feeling so alone and feeling alienated and different, struggling alone with our pain. As soon as you think of other people with your same pain, you're not alone anymore. Right? And if you think, I want theirs as well as mine, that makes you feel very courageous and robust and strong, right? You feel capable to cope with even more than what you're capable of coping with now, right? It builds your strength. And again, this is a mental attitude, right? You're not like going to people's houses and say, give me your debt too, right? Like this is a mental attitude, but it's transformative when you adopt it. Okay, so Tonglen, then for the people in your life, you can think about them specifically. You know, so-and-so is having this problem and so-and-so is having that problem. Think of their stuff that you know, and you take it on, and you send them out light, right? And then further and further out until it's for the whole world. And then how strong are you, right? And how crushed is your self-cherishing, or dissolved is your self-cherishing? Yeah, because sometimes it's the self-cherishing that is telling you that you should be more than you are as a practitioner. It's the thing that's fueling the pride, and pride and depression are very strongly related, right? If you think you should be here, up here, but you're actually functioning here, that disparity makes you depressed, and you think, what is wrong with me? I'm crap. If you saw yourself as you were, and you performed as you were, then you're like, oh yeah, right? But the problem is we had an exaggerated sense of where we were. And so that friction is what freaks us out. That friction is what builds the depression. Where you are is fine, right? What's the problem with where you are, right? But it's that inflated view, right? So the relationship between, right? Pride and depression are good friends, yeah?
Pride and depression?
Yeah, because if you think of yourself as too high, eventually the lie gets shown and you fall, right? So also the way we approach the spiritual path, we have to be so careful that we don't think we could go faster or better or deeper than we actually can. And it's very easy to fall into that trap because intellectually you will understand things very well, much before you can practice them. So it can make this tendency worse, right? Where, okay, I understand all of this, but I can only practice that. Right? You know this feeling, right? Like I understand all these things about the Dharma, but I can only practice this one tiny thing, like sometimes breathing meditation. What is wrong with me? Right? Right? And there's nothing wrong with you, right? It takes a while for intelligence to filter down into behavior. It just takes a while, right? There's nothing wrong with you, right? It's a process. So that tendency we have generally in life can actually get worse in the Dharma because the time it takes for the funnel down from understanding into integration. Do you understand what I mean, right? Yep, lots of stuff you get, but only a couple things you can practice normal, right? Totally normal. So don't exaggerate what you're able to do, right? You're learning tons, but you're doing this amount. This amount is great because it's more than you used to. This amount is great because it's fulfilling your potential slowly, right? Yeah, other advice from the crowd? Yeah.
It's quite normal to be in the top when you practice.
Yeah.
When you practice Dhamma. Sometimes you can study, don't go higher and higher, touching the lap forever.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes you go.
Yeah, even for a while.
Walk for kilometers, but if you're consistent, sometimes things will come up and show up in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is a bit like that, yeah, where you kind of go up a bit and then you plateau for a while and then you go up for a bit and you plateau for a while. It's normal. And even to backslide a little bit, especially if you haven't been surrounding yourself with supportive people, especially if you haven't been like going to class and meditations and stuff, it's normal to then backslide a bit and forget what you already knew. It's totally normal, yeah.
Yeah, and I'd say Mary translated the book of Islam Super. She translated it. She used to give. And I think it's quite, to make such a big accomplishments, it could be sometimes that you go down after doing such a big thing, you, oh, for God's sake, what am I doing with my life now? I do nothing, it's really, really depressing.
Yeah.
Every time I achieve a dream, I fell down.
Yeah.
I really, very sweet for 2 hours, sometimes for 2 weeks, sometimes for 2 months, but you achieved a really, really big goal, translating the book.
Yeah.
Almost. So
But yeah, the honeymoon is over, right? The honeymoon is over, yeah.
And now she's worried. She won't be printed well enough, we made many mistakes.
Yeah. No, it's normal, right?
It's really strong. So
It happens after a retreat often as well. Not always, but sometimes you'll have a big retreat and then totally depressed afterwards and you think, oh no, I failed at my retreat. But there was all this build-up, and there was a certain structure in the retreat that you can't maintain in your daily life yet. It's normal, right? But again, our pride will think it can do the things it understands. And what it understands and what it can do, the self, is different, right? It's different. And knowing that, it can be soothing, right? Very soothing.
Why is it
if you've built it up a lot, right? If you've built it up as this big deal, right? And you've been focusing really, really well. Yeah, afterwards you might think that I can maintain this same schedule. Afterwards you think I can go back to those things I touched in retreat, and sometimes you can't. Yeah.
It's not only this, you get into a habit
Yeah.
working on a certain thing every day.
Yeah.
And it's in your mind, means you do deeds, and you talk about it, and you converse, and your whole world is around it.
Yep.
And then one day it's over. You finish.
Yep.
The program is done. You can't help it anymore.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
then
normal.
You go down.
Yep, normal, totally normal. So, it's just this process of that we all are doing anyway, of our disturbing emotions arise and we get better and better at not believing what they say, right? Then they last shorter periods of time. We're used to having a strong experience. Disturbing emotions are our strongest experience for ourselves usually, right? Big anger, big attachment, big depression. These are our sort of highlighted life experiences until our practice gets stronger. So of course we're used to turning our attention towards them and giving them more energy because they're so bright and shiny and sort of attract your attention, right? Or dark and gloomy and full of poetry or whatever, right? But because negative emotions are such a big part of our experience, it's only natural that we turn towards them. But actually we could say, okay, that's happening, and all of this other stuff is happening as well that's less attention grabbing. Yeah, that doesn't grab your attention in the same way, but is actually more logical, more useful, more beneficial. And so you say, okay, this component of my experience, these negative emotions, they're happening, but let's turn my attention to these other things also happening. The part that knows I shouldn't believe what I say to myself under this influence, right? Like that feeling you have after you've been angry, right? If you've been very, very angry, your mind has all sorts of truths to tell that later when you're not angry, you go, oh, that's a bit much, right? That was a bit exaggerated. We just get better and better at going, I don't believe you, disturbing emotions. You've been lying to me since beginningless time. I don't believe you. Yeah. And if you don't believe them, they fade away, right? If you believe them, then they self-escalate, right? They go, ha-ha, see, I said I was right, and they take over, right? So you hear the words of your disturbing emotions, they often have patterns, right? They often say certain things, right? Like attachment often says, everything will be okay when, yeah? If people would just, right? Those are the things attachment often says. If you can hear yourself saying that, you can go, that's attachment. Right? And you go, you liar. You liar. I know you. Yeah, so, slowly, right? And again, this is why we do these prayers, right? Is that it's not asking for someone to save us, it's reminding ourselves that we save ourselves every moment that we have mindfulness and bodhicitta, right?
Do you have more quotes of attachment?
Yeah. We'll have a side conversation later. Yeah, things attachment says, oh yes, I have more to say about that, right? No, but really just do your own journaling. Hey, when I'm in a huge attachment fog, what do I say to myself? What's the internal narrative when I'm in attachment? Do that own journaling, because everyone has a slightly different version, right? Some people have needy attachment, some people have grasping attachment, all different kinds, right? So you find yours, then you can say, I don't believe you. Yes. Slowly, right? So we go through all of these Lam Rim verses, and then when you get to page 8, it gets into the hardcore bodhicitta stuff that was triggering you and triggering many people, I'm guessing, about giving up one's body and being a wish-fulfilling jewel and all this hoopla, right? So this will get into more detail when we do the thought transformation section of Discovering Buddhism, but just to kind of get on track with what the point is and to not go to the wrong direction, all right? So it starts with Kadampa Geshe Langri Tampa's 8 verses of thought transformation, just that first verse. Yeah, you all on the same page? On page 8? Halfway down the page? Yep. Yep. Exactly. So, determined to obtain the greatest possible benefit from all sentient beings who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, I shall hold them most dear at all times. This is getting us into the right headspace for how to view others in the coarse way. And then as the verses go on, they get more and more subtle and more intense. So this level of trying to get benefit from sentient beings, this is kind of triggering our healthy selfishness. Yes? The healthy selfishness that realizes that if we want people to be nice to us, if we want people to like us, we need to be nice. Right? If we're wondering why people are always criticizing us and not responding to us with respect, perhaps we're not very nice, right? And not nice like sugary nice, but maybe we're not very respectful, and that's why people aren't responding well to us, right? So this is starting with the wise selfishness, and then we unhook from selfishness altogether, right? But we have to kind of start where we are. Do you guys understand? Yeah? Okay. So may I become like a wish-granting jewel, fulfilling all the wishes, etc. Okay, so fulfilling all the wishes, again, isn't like being a fixer. It's not going around giving presents all the time, right? It's not being some sort of endless source of generosity in a worldly, material sense. What we're trying to do is this mental attitude that in each moment is looking for opportunities to practice. Meaning looking for opportunities to bring the best out of ourselves and to bring the best out of others, right? Because when people are in positive states of mind, they are happier, right? And so how can we in each moment be a condition for positive states of mind to come out of others and ourselves, right? And again, we can't control it and we can't make it happen. It's about an attitude of being wanting to, which sometimes is effective, right? And when it's effective, great. And when it's not effective, that's samsara, that's life. Okay, but this attitude internally keeps me open, keeps me spacious, keeps me from narrowing the view back into the self-centered attitude, right? So all of these are about very subtle mental attitudes that we're adjusting ourselves back into. All of this is about overcoming self-cherishing and encouraging cherishing others. Am I going too fast? No, you're right? Okay. Okay. So then we have, for the sake of accomplishing the two purposes without loss or concern, I give away my body and my enjoyments, etc., etc. So the point here of giving away body and enjoyments, food and clothing, giving away, this is not literal giving away. This is looking at the things you use in your life from the perspective of altruism, right? So the way that looks is going to be very, very personal, but we're going to do this when we get into the 5 powers during the day. We'll get into this more. But what it's looking at is how can you use your ordinary activities as an anchor or a catalyst or a wake-up call to remind you of bodhicitta. So say I take this water in this glass. How do I give this to all sentient beings? I think for the sake of all sentient beings, I'm drinking some water. The sentient beings aren't getting my water. What? Makes no sense, right? But you're thinking through the health that I achieve through drinking water, I'm going to be a more powerful, healthy vessel to be of benefit to others, right? So for their sake, I am looking after myself. Yes? I am eating food, treating it like medicine to make me strong and healthy so I can benefit others. I'm not eating food as a source of enjoyment, as a source of indulgence, as a way to kill time, as a way to feed my neediness. You know, I'm treating it as I need to eat good, healthy food to be strong for others, right? So you look after yourself even more and better with this attitude that's for others, yeah? If you're not working for the welfare of others, you can eat too much sugar and have too much caffeine and get yourself all speedy, right, and all caffeinated and all agitated, and it's like, oh, well, it's my body, it's my life, I'm having my coffee, right? But if it's for others, you might actually eat slightly differently because you want to be in your best physical experience to be of benefit to them. It shifts a little bit your choices. And even if it doesn't shift your choices, it shifts your approach to your choices, right? So very gently, it's worth exploring. Yeah?
There's something fundamental here that doesn't sit with me. And I'm always very much appreciate what you said before, that just because I don't understand now doesn't mean that there is a depth that I may not understand at a later point. This notion of dismissal of, actually I was glad that, I don't know your name, but brought up self-compassion, because I'm not noticing it in the text that I've read. By the way, my background is, originally I was in a Zen Buddhism Sangha for a year and a half, going years back, and had after that some encounter with Tibetan Buddhism, but not in recent years. So I'm doing other things. So I haven't noticed much in the text about this issue of the self. It's always this thing of, I for the sake of others. And in a sense, that doesn't make really sense to me, because there is no more importance of the sentient other. I too am a sentient other to someone else. And therefore, there is no reason, why not have teachings which teach you how to be in this world as you are also empowering others that are in this world. Each individual is no less important just because it's to themselves.
Nowhere does it say that.
It doesn't seem, the words that I hear don't seem to convey that as some sort of self-sacrifice.
No. First, understand that Tibetans have better self-esteem than us. First, understand that. Tibetans have much better self-esteem than us. They are not filled with all sorts of self-loathing. Maybe now that they've been in the West long enough they are, but traditionally they weren't, okay? So first of all, these Mahayana teachings are never excluding the self. You are always together with all sentient beings, includes you. All sentient beings includes you. All sentient beings includes you, all sentient beings includes you, okay? So all sentient beings includes you, but by shifting the emphasis, you relax the mind outward. And if you think very directly about your personal experience, a whole day spent thinking, how can I get happy? How can I get happy? How can I get happy? You're alone in your house all day and you're trying to get happy, right? This snack, this activity, this entertainment, but you're in that kind of like, I need to get happy, I need to get happy. Often not so happy, right? At the end of that day. A day spent doing work that you love that you know is of benefit, that has purpose and meaning, that whole day, not in a sort of self-negating way, but in a expanding outward way. Days spent doing that kind of work, at the end of that day, you go, that was a good day, and you sleep well. Yes, very happy as the result of having thought about others all day, having done beneficial work all day. Now, this is different than being a martyr, right? Being a martyr is like, no, you first. No, I mean nothing. No, walk on me. No, lots of people's mothers are like this, right? Like, no, you first, right? And then they hold this like grudge and this resentment that builds over time, and they're full of bitterness, right? This happens, yes. This is not what we're talking about. Because they're saying all sentient beings excludes me. No, you take everything. I don't need anything, right? We are not martyrs. We are the opposite of martyrs. We're putting huge amounts of effort into our own happiness by working for the welfare of others. So self-compassion and self-love and all of these things, they are not emphasized because they're implied. They're implied. So they're not kind of spelt out explicitly, partially because this is Tibetan Buddhism and they don't really need it spelled out, the Tibetans. Western Buddhists kind of need it spelled out more often, and so it's good that you mention it, and it's good that you mention it because we do need to remember all sentient beings includes us, and that compassion for others should never be martyrdom. We need to be reminded, but keep reminding yourself of that there's not a time where suddenly you don't get any help or support or validation, or there's never a point, right? It's not spelt out in Tibetan Buddhism, it's implied. Yeah. Does that help?
It helps.
Yeah? Does that help? Slowly, right? And really, if we have to be very clear about what does it mean to, we have to be, what does it mean to have self-love? Love is the wish for happiness, for others to have happiness, for ourselves to have happiness. What is the cause for happiness? Right? Then it becomes a more complicated issue. You say, okay, love means I'm feeling happy, I'm getting happiness support. Actually, the causes for happiness are your own mental states, right? everything else is a condition, right? And what is the cause for your lack of suffering, for freedom from suffering? It is your own mental states. So the kindest thing you can do for yourself is break through the selfish mind, right? And the root of the selfish mind is not understanding that everything is interconnected. So when you're saying for others, for others, for others, you're touching the fundamental interconnectedness of everyone, right? Part of our suffering is feeling all alone and needing to protect that all alone self. The self has never been alone and really never needed the kind of protection that we think it does. So by thinking of others, there's immediate connection, right? You're immediately connecting to the universal experience. And in doing that, you're closer to reality, you're closer to peace, and your mind is happier. Like it is when you're with, your people, right? When you're with the friends that are easy to be with, when you're with all your best friends and everyone's getting along and you're in a really relaxed and happy headspace, those few times, right? When you're in that space, your internal dialogue doesn't have a lot of sentences that start with I. Yeah? I need, I this, I that. Yeah, your internal dialogue has a quieter I when you're feeling connected to other people. Do you think? Yeah, sometimes, right? Not when you're trying to micromanage everyone, right? But like when you're genuinely just enjoying people's company and feeling connected, that loud I, that selfish I kind of shrinks, that guy, right? Which is really the pretender, right? The one that's never existed at all. So again, we're trying to break through, to use a good Zen phrase, right? Thich Nhat Hanh would say, we're here to awaken from the illusion of our separateness, right? Thich Nhat Hanh, good old Zen, right? So it is built in everywhere, but why are we trying to awaken from the illusion of our separateness? Because separateness is what makes us suffer. The illusion of separateness is what makes us suffer and what makes our bad behavior, right? Make it easy like recycling, right? If you see a direct cause and effect relationship between me recycling and there not being so much rubbish and pollution and, waste in this world, and the way it benefits everyone, then you want to recycle. But if you don't see that cause and effect relationship, you're like, into the rubbish, right? If you're not seeing cause and effect, it's harder to kind of get on board with these ideas. So you want to sort of play with them in your mind so you can touch something experientially. Whatever example is going to get you there, yeah? Difference between needy, self-absorbed day and happy working for others day, that's a good one, right? Everyone have an example of that one in your head that's coming up? How much happy you were? When you were the most happy, what was happening? Internally, not externally. Anyway, very slowly it becomes clear. But, a lot of these verses about may I be this for sentient beings or that for sentient beings, it's cultivating this mental attitude that is always in the headspace of connectedness.
Even giving service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
For example.
Exactly.
Sentient beings are very much in need of a lot of attachments. They're in need of food, they're in need of medicine, they're in need of education, they're in need of a good time, they're in need of whatever. Then that's fine to cultivate their attachments, just not your attachment.
Well, we have to define attachment, right? Yeah. First we have to define what attachment is. But it is true that sometimes basic needs need to be sorted out before we can go to the deeper stuff. Absolutely. Right? So our mental attitude is completely personal. We never should inflict this on other people because we're getting on board with getting over self-cherishing and think, why aren't you working for the welfare of others? Why aren't you working for the welfare of others? Why aren't you, It's such a personal process, right? This is so personal that when other people say, I'm hungry, give them food. Don't overthink it. If they say, I'm lonely, go hang out with them if you can. Right? Unless they're becoming weird and codependent and you're enabling some weirdness. Okay, right? Like common sense holds. This is completely private, personal attitude, which helps you not be the sort of person that puts pressure on a community and a family, but actually brings a lift and a light to a family and a community, right? It's so private. Yeah. So there are people that need just these basic things, and sometimes it's involved with disturbing emotions, right? But sometimes we have to kind of soothe the surface disturbance before anything deeper can happen, right? So, the example I always use of my teacher with very arrogant people in class, right? They say, so the arrogant person in class asks a very smart question, right? A smart, fancy question, a showing off question, right? What my teacher will do is praise them, right? Because that settles down their agitated pride that needs to show off. And when they settle down, then they can listen, right? The rest of us are so annoyed. We're like, don't praise that arrogant person. Oh my God, this is so annoying, right? It's like, oh, and we're all cringing because we all feel this, pompous person going off on an intellectual rant. But what's actually effective is, something that on the surface looks like feeding the beast. It's actually settling the beast so that work can get done, right? So your common sense holds, right? That sometimes surface things need to be soothed, basic needs need to be met, and then we can get the deep work done. And this applies for yourself as well as your work for others, right? Some days it's too soon to go straight into a meditation on the emptiness of inherent existence, right? Some days, you just slowly, right? But some days you need a snack, right? Have a snack first, have a cup of tea, then do it, right? Yeah, just very gently. So these are aspirations, yeah? These prayers are aspirations. Some of them are aspirations you can fulfill in the moment of remembering them, and some of them are going to take a while, right? But they're planting the seed and they're building strength with attitudes. Does that make sense? Yes, any questions about this practice? You can take it or leave it, but the practice itself kind of as a premise, how you doing? Yeah.
So you said about stuff that we don't understand in meditation or prayer like that. You said to use it with the mind of curiosity, or to engage with it with the mind of curiosity.
Yeah.
But what if the ratio is like there's a lot more that I don't understand than I do in a prayer like this? Or
You might want to find a simpler one. So the foundation of all good qualities, was it easier?
Yeah.
Pick, swap.
So that.
Yeah, tops. Lamrim something, your choice. Yeah, a Lamrim something. So we could maybe send, I'll pour Tal, so much work for Tal, I will send you a list of Lamrim options and you can look through and see which one suits your mind. Yeah. And and sometimes you can cycle them through. So if you're feeling ambitious, you could do the hard one, just to kind of touch base and go, hey, I understand that line now. Haha, right? But then on days that you're more busy, you touch the ones that really get you. Yeah. And, now for those of you that aren't identifying as Buddhist or who don't want to do the Buddhist structure but still kind of want to touch something, you could use a beautiful poem, right? You could use a prayer from another tradition, right? So something that's getting your mind motivated in a healthy way, right? So your choice, right? Your choice what's going to get you there. So know that this is why we use this particular framework. Now you can figure out for yourself what's going to work for you. This one Lama Zopa Rinpoche compiled himself, and so for FPMT, Gelugpa, Mahayana, Tibetan Buddhists, it's a really good one because it kind of carries all of the energy of his work. But if it's not your cup of tea, there are many other options that work. Yeah. Okay, so a cup of tea, and then we're going to do some Vajrasattva together.